Hi there, it's Nicole with a card featuring the Essentials by Ellen, 'Tis the Season stamps and dies. I've combined it with some other stamps and dies, the Home and Hearth tree dies from the Essentials by Ellen collection, and then the Snow-Capped Mountains from the latest Mama Elephant release, and then the stitched slightly rounded border from the Pretty Pink Posh Stitched Borders 1 die collection. I'm going to start by die cutting my Snow-Capped Mountains from some watercolor cardstock. This is the Tim Holtz watercolor cardstock. From the top portion there, I am going to go ahead and just slide in some of those trees from the Essentials by Ellen Home and Hearth die collection and use up as much of that watercolor cardstock as possible so I can get some trees from this. I'm using the watercolor cardstock because I'm going to be coloring in these images with Tim Holtz Distress inks and using a little water to distress them, so I find that this kind of cardstock works the best for that technique. And I'm going to need quite a few trees, so I'm going to go ahead and die cut as many as I can from this and then use another scrap of paper in a little bit to die cut the rest of the trees I need for my card. Next, I am going to die cut a border, or this, I guess I'm going to die cut the snow caps for the mountains first from some smooth white cardstock. And then the border that's going to be the snowy border for the trees and the car is die cut from some smooth white cardstock using the Pretty Pink Posh Stitched Borders 1 die. On another sheet of A2 sized watercolor cardstock, I am going to color this in with some Blueprint Sketch Distress ink. It really only needs to be about that top third portion of the card. That's all that's going to be shown. I like this. I think it's a pretty kind of, maybe even looks like a night sky type of background. And then for the trees, I am going to use the Forest Moss and Gathered Twigs Distress ink to color in all of these trees. It makes it super easy with the mini ink blending tool, where I'm going to add color to the tree tops with Forest Moss ink. And I'm just going to go through and do them all at once. Very quick and easy to do. And then for the tree trunks, I'll take the Gathered Twigs and do the exact same thing. A great way to color in the images so that you can get them out of two colors, maybe instead of just one. Color in each of these. I like these colors for Christmas themed cards. I think they work perfectly. I'll go ahead and set those aside for a minute. Make sure you clean your craft mat really well so you don't have any colors mixing, because I'm going to go back in with a light color now, the Tumbled Glass Distress ink, and color in very lightly these Snow-Capped Mountains, this border here. I don't want a ton of color, but I want it to be just enough to give it that hint of color. Sometimes snow even gets that blue tinge to it. So then I'm going to take a mini mister filled with water and spritz some water over both of these panels and let them air dry. The water is just going to move and work with that distress ink to give it a little bit more of a fun texture. While those are drying, I'm going to stamp the car from the Essentials by Ellen, 'Tis the Season stamp set. This stamp set was released last year, but the exciting news is now Ellen Hutson has the coordinating dies for this stamp set. I'm so excited about this. I love having the coordinating dies for these stamps. I'm coloring in the car with red Copic markers. They're shown across the bottom of the screen here, the exact colors I'm using. I'm using R24, 29, and 39 for the red portion of the vehicle. I use the base color of R24, and then I'm going to go in with my darkest color, the R39, and that's going to give me some nice shading and shadowing, kind of just tracing along the actual stamp lines with a lot of that coloring. And then I'm going to go in with R29 and kind of pull that dark color out and pull my shadowing out just a little bit more. That's going to blend the darkest color nicely into my lightest color. trace over any of those other areas, and then go back in with the R24, my lightest color, and blend it all out again. For the tree on top of the car, I'm going to use G46 and G29. I'm going to do G46 first and color in the tree portion completely. And then I'm not going to be doing any additional shading. I won't go back to that color, but instead just kind of use some little flicks of G29 and feather in that darker color for texture. For the dark part of the wheels, I'm using C6 and C8. I laid down the C6 first, then a little C8, and I'll blend that out. The lighter color will give it a little bit of a highlight. For the headlight, a little Y19, and then for the inside of the windows, so that it looks like you're seeing through those to the sky or the mountain behind, I guess it's more the mountain, I used a little BG0000, E57 and 55 for the tree trunk, and then my lightest cool gray markers for the insides of the wheels, and then the bumpers and all of those other little extra areas. Here's that coordinating "'Tis the Season" die. I'll tape that in place and run that through my Big Shot. And then I can start putting everything together. I'm going to be layering all of these elements here. Before I add my bottom snowy layer, I want to go ahead and do any stamping, so I'll stamp my greeting, also from the "'Tis the Season" stamp set. I'll stamp "'Tis the Season" and then "Happy Holidays" right underneath it. I'm using the Lawn Fawn Black Licorice ink to stamp my greeting. You can see all the little pieces laid out here. And then I'm going to go ahead and build my scene and adhere all of this stuff before I add just a few finishing touches. Attach the snow-capped mountains border on the background, and then the snowy border with the greeting at the bottom of that, and then the snow caps on each of the mountains. Using a little zig glue pin to attach my trees here on either side of where I will attach the car. Just using something heavy, I'm using an acrylic block to hold those down until that liquid glue dries. I love placing these little tree pieces along the rounded border. Use some glue dots to attach my car right there in between the two sections of trees. Before I attach the car, I did decide to take the little dots stamp from the Holly Jolly stamp set, and I inked it up with the Yeti white pigment ink from Lawn Fawn and added some detail to that dark blue to almost look like snow. Just adds additional detail to that top portion of the scene. Some black gel pen for the centers of both of the black wheels. I'm going to go ahead and attach that car now using some glue dots. And then finally, I am going to take the Pico Embellisher. This is a white opaque ink that has a really fine tip. And I am going to add detail to the snow-capped mountains and the trees. So for the snow-capped mountains, they have that great stitching detail, and I don't really want to cover that up, but I wanted them to have some sort of dimension. And the Pico Embellisher is going to give me some of that dimension. There are a few little air bubbles that I'm kind of poking out with a straight pin. But in real life, it gives some nice glossy texture, and I'm purposely doing it a little bit messy to give it more of that snow type of look. And it dries fairly quickly as well. So it gives a really nice dimensional appearance to those snow-capped mountains, and then I will draw on some snow on the trees, both the die-cut trees and the tree on top of the car to finish it all off. Let that dry, attach it to a card base, and my card is all finished. Thanks for watching this video showcasing the "'Tis the Season" stamps and dies from the Essentials by Ellen collection. The supplies I've used to create this card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Please subscribe for weekly card making and stamping videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.